What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another AWS On Air. My name's Aaron Hunter. I'm a technical trainer with AWS Training and Certification, and today we're going to talk about AWS Power Hour remotely from the AWS Summit in Paris. I have my good friend Greg here, who is also one of my hosts. Greg.
Hello, great to be here today, Aaron. I'm Greg Powell, Senior Startup Solutions Architect here at AWS.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Greg, so much. And thanks for hosting 6 episodes of the AWS Power Hour Architecting Pro series with me.
My pleasure. It was a blast.
So today we're going to talk about 6 episodes or just a couple of them?
Just a couple episodes. Yeah,
I don't think we have enough time to cover 6, but let's go ahead and kind of show people how they can get there. So everyone who's watching right now, go to awspowerhour.com, and that will take you to the AWS Training and Certification on Twitch landing page. There you can find all the information that you might need. Let me go ahead and look down real quick for all of the different series, but we're talking about the AWS Architecting Pro. Before we get there, I want to call out this white button right here that says sign up. Go ahead and click on that, and that'll take you over to the AWS Training and Certification Twitch email page, where if you sign up for the email subscription, then you can get notified of brand new episodes, brand new series, and also resources if you're planning for a certification. So Greg, on this page right here for AWS Architecting or AWS Power Hour Architecting Pro, that's the series that we just wrapped up. What was your favorite episode out of the 6?
I tell you what, Aaron, there's 6 episodes and I can't play favorites because I actually like them all. Each one of them was great in their own little way.
And each one of them really was great in their own little way. We can see here that we have some information about the SA Professional or SAP C02 exam. We also have our aliases. So if people want to connect with us on LinkedIn, they can find out our aliases and our handles there. And there's a full breakdown of every single episode. So we see episode 1, Designing Solutions for Organizational Complexity. Episode 2, Design for New Solutions. Episode 3, Continuous Improvement for Existing Solutions. Episode 4, keep going down the list, 5 and 6, where we start wrapping up the entire series. And I see a couple links and things here, so like resources and watching on demand. Does that stand out to you at all, Greg?
It does. Yeah. What I like about this landing page for AWS Power Hour for Architecting Pro is that each one of the episodes had their own set of resources. So this is kind of like a starting point that links you to the necessary resources that would help you with that corresponding episode. So it's a great place to start.
Exactly. And we can kind of click on the resources here, and it drops down a list of resources that are specific to every single episode. So here we can see episode 1, Designing Solutions for Organizational Complexity, where we first introduce ourselves to everyone that we're streaming to live, or if they're watching it on demand, you can go ahead and click on this button here, and that'll take you to the Twitch page for that video. But within the resources, we have the exam prep link that's directly within Skill Builder. We also have the Certified Solutions Architect Professional landing page, the exam guide, and the exam guide. That reminds me, Greg, is there a secret to all these episodes?
There is a secret. Should I reveal what the secret is?
I think you should.
So each of these episodes, the first 4, are directly aligned to the domains of the SA Pro exam guide.
Okay, and that's within the exam guide. So we'll show people how to get there. Go ahead and click on the landing page here. That's the second bullet, and that'll take you directly over to, I already have the tab pulled up, but that'll take you over to the landing page for the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional page, where all the details exist right here. We can see that you can schedule an exam. You have the exam overview, the level, the length, the cost, the format, the delivery method, and then we can see down here the exam guide that Greg is talking about, which again, I'm kind of cheating. I already have the links pulled up here, but this exam
like a cooking
guide,
show, everything is pre-baked.
Exactly. We're going to show you like how to bake the pie, and then we already have a pie in the oven. But this exam guide is really, it's kind of like a cooking show. It's kind of your recipe for success. If you follow the exam guide and follow the recipe, you can walk all the way through. We can see here it's aligned to the SAP C02 exam, and We can also see it's validating the candidate to complete the following tasks within the scope of the AWS well-architected framework. And Greg, we did a really good job talking about the well-architected framework in episode 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, the well-architected framework document and the principles and the pillars are deeply ingrained through the Solution Architect Pro exam.
Yes, exactly. And we can see here that the target candidate description, it calls out that the target candidate has 2 or more years of experience in using AWS services. We covered that in more details on the first episode as well, so go watch the first episode on demand. But let me go back to what Greg mentioned and said the exam guide and the domains specifically within the exam guide really set the pace for each episode, or at least the first 4 episodes. So here we can see domain 1, design solutions for organizational complexity. If we go back over to the landing page, that's episode 1. And then episode 2, design for new solutions, that is also domain 2. 26% and 29% of the exam. It's kind of a hefty lift.
That is hefty.
So if we scroll down further on that, then the 26% and 29% for the first 2 domains broken down even further, not by percentage, but we can see there's tasks. So domain 1, design solutions for organizational complexity. This maps back to episode 1 from the Power Hour Architecting Pro series, has task 1, architect network connectivity strategies. Why couldn't I read that properly? And it expects knowledge of the global infrastructure and different networking components.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about organizational complexity, just as the title of the domain would lead you to believe, it's not just one VPC or one VPN or one AWS account. This is operating AWS at scale. And with that comes additional degrees of complexity. And the SA Pro exam is testing for that in domain 1. They're making sure that you can design a solution that just doesn't meet a simple setup, but it can meet a complex setup. For example, like an enterprise-wide setup.
Exactly. So it's not designing solutions for organizational simplicity. It's designing solutions for organizational complexity and having multi-network infrastructure and architecture and the foundation from maybe even an acquisition. If you were to acquire a company and you have to figure out how to migrate that company in and set up that kind of complexity too. So that could be task 1. It could be task 2, because then you have security on top of all of that. So not just network security, but IAM, or identity and access management, and network ACLs or access control lists, and then certificates and whatever else Greg wants to say right now.
Yeah, so this is security of your entire AWS environment as a whole, as Aaron was mentioning, from your IAM to your single sign-on, like data in transit, data at rest, like anything is fair game from an AWS security standpoint on that AWS SA Pro exam.
Yeah, and then even there's it says right here, AWS security, identity, and compliance tools, for example, AWS CloudTrail. So some kind of auditing as well at the same time. So like Security Hub, Access Analyzer, Amazon Inspector, a whole lot. Multiple tasks within the first domain. The third task is designing reliable and resilient architectures. And remember, we do a full deep dive and breakdown on the first episode for domain 1. Episode 2 is domain 2, and so forth. So definitely check out the full series. But let's talk more about task statement 3.
Yeah, design reliable and resilient architectures. Again, we mentioned that AWS Well Architected Framework. These are right out of the AWS Well Architected Framework in terms of being able to design reliability. We spent a lot of time in the original episodes talking about recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives and disaster recovery, and don't have the time to deep dive on those now. But just to put things into perspective, on the original episodes that we're kind of summarizing in this particular video, each one of those was 90 minutes each. So this is kind of introducing you to the show and the format, and you're definitely welcome. We encourage you to watch those full episodes.
Yeah, for sure. And even though we can't deep dive on all of them, recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, I think that's a critical component for really like any architect or any solutions architect. I like to think of them as like a recovery time objective, how long it takes for you to get back up to the point of something happening. And the recovery point objective, it could be like a checkpoint on a video game. So maybe you're trying to jump over the lava pit and then you fall into the lava pit.
Yeah.
My kids like to play the floor is lava, so that's kind of relevant to me right now.
And you save the game right where you were falling into the pit. So every time you resume, you fall into the pit infinitely.
That's your recovery point objective, and then your recovery time objective, how long it takes for you to get back up to that lava and hopefully jump over it.
That's right.
All right, task statement 4 starts talking about designing a multi-account AWS environment. So earlier, like a few minutes ago, we just talked about maybe an acquisition. So here it's knowledge of using services like AWS organizations for your organizational complexity and using service control policies to help with security, or even AWS Control Tower, where it starts to implement some guardrails and some guidance there. So multi-account event notifications and even resource sharing across different environments. And Greg, you mentioned you're a solutions architect, so I imagine this is probably a pretty big thing that you spend some of your time on.
This is something I talk about on a very regular basis, and really where the designing multi-account AWS environments falls under. The thing that kind of operates at the top of this is building out an AWS landing zone, such as figuring out which regions you want to operate in, what availability zones, what your VPCs look like, what your networking look like, and having a mechanism to be able to orchestrate this at scale. AWS organizations allows you to manage multiple AWS accounts as well as billing, and then AWS Control Tower allows you to be able to deploy and manage these AWS accounts in the underlying landing zone functions through these AWS services.
Oh, you talked about billing, and using AWS organizations with consolidated billing really helps us simplify the view. And then also using tags, which is not mentioned here, but still a good thing to know and a good practice. Moving down to task statement 5 here. Remember, everyone, we do a deeper dive on this in our episodes, so go check them out. But task statement number 5 says determining cost optimization. So Greg, you mentioned costs with organizations, and I mentioned tagging. You can also have budgets set up, and you can take a look at the right sizing visibility tools for Compute Optimizer or even Amazon S3 storage lens. That's kind of all the time that we have for domain 1. Should we move over to domain 2?
Yeah, let's go right into domain 2 with our remaining time.
All right, perfect. So Greg, do you want to drive domain 2 and talk about each task?
Yeah, so designing for new solutions, now you come into a brand net new environment if you have the honor of doing so. So you don't have any of the old technical debt or something that's already running. You're designing the landscape from scratch. So
could be a good thing. Could not be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the lift is on you as that new SA Pro working for that particular customer or organization to build all this out. Some of the knowledge that domain 2 helps for you to know this is things like infrastructure as code, like AWS CloudFormation. We talk about continuous integration and continuous delivery, the CI/CD. These are kind of DevOps concepts, because we want to introduce you to automation very early, because we don't want you just going into the AWS management console every time you need to do something and using the GUI to do next finish type stuff. We want you operating in the command line interface, the SDKs, and writing CloudFormation templates to be able to execute your environments from an automated fashion.
Yeah, so that's task statement 1. Task statement 2 really starts to go into ensuring business continuity. And again, you're a solutions architect, so I imagine this is a very critical conversation for your customers.
Yes. So when we talk about business continuity, this aligns very closely to disaster recovery. The business continuity is basically the input in terms of what does the disaster recovery need to look like. And the business drives that decision instead of the IT department. So you need to figure out, okay, if we are multi-region, then we need to figure out, okay, what does our global infrastructure need to look like from a multi-regional standpoint? We need networking concepts are definitely important for disaster recovery solutions. Route 53 and the various failover models are just one thing in particular that stands out, those routing methods. And then we see the reference to the recovery time and recovery point objectives. One thing I'd highlight here is, disaster recovery isn't just taking everything that's in production and replicating it ×2 over in a different geographical location. With cloud, you can get even more creative and figure out, based on your RTOs and RPOs, is backup and recovery enough? Or should we do a warm standby or a multi-site, or something that you may not be familiar with, something called a pilot light, where you would just have the bare bones in a secondary location. Maybe you have a database with some replication going between the primary and the failover location. And then if things do go bump in the night and there is an issue in the production environment, then you could have something like a cloud formation template spin up the entire architecture over in that secondary region, and then link everything back to a database endpoint in that environment. So lots of creative stuff.
Exactly. And we do an even deeper dive on this with the second episode. So make sure to go watch that on demand, being very conscious of time here because we have more task statements to cover. So let's move over to task statement 3. Before I do that, I want to call out one thing. We do see an overlap in the task statement. So if you start to see an overlap, that might be an indicator of areas to focus on. So Greg, task statement 3, with the IAM, knowledge of IAM, knowledge of route tables, again, security groups, network ACLs. If there's one thing that stands out to you here with this task statement, what would it be?
Yeah, one thing I would say is use the full stack of AWS security products and services to build towards the requirement. In the questions, you're going to be given a scenario, and then you're going to need to look at specific requirements. So you're going to have to know good familiarity with AWS security services to be able to build out the solution that solves the right problem. In this case, security.
Yeah. Using different services like Shield or Web Application Firewall, which one is going to be right for that scenario? GuardDuty and Security Hub for visualization, or having some kind of central repository of your security risks and threats could be a good thing to know as well. Task statement 4 starts to wrap it up, and it's kind of split across 2 different pages here, but it's determining a strategy to meet reliability requirements. So again, we start seeing the global infrastructure is creeping back up as the top bullet here. And then we also have our storage services for replication strategies. Now, Greg, you mentioned the pilot light, and again, we do a deeper dive on this in episode 2, but it seems like replication strategies is a critical component that everyone should be aware of before they plan to take the exam.
Yes, replication is a big deal because it's a key input to ensure that your architecture is reliable.
Yeah, and then looking down here, it has skills in designing highly available applications and then also operating and maintaining high availability architectures. So failovers is one of the key words that's kind of standing out to me. And I believe this is the final task statement within this domain. Oh, no, we have 2 more. Designing a solution to meet performance objectives. So monitoring your performance, measuring your performance effectively, and then making micro adjustments to your architecture to make sure that you're trending in the right direction for your business, whether it be spending too much cost in one area or having too much latency in another area. All of that kind of comes back to performance. And task statement number 6 here, again, cost comes back into the conversation, but determining that strategy to meet multiple or to meet solution goals and objectives. So we can use storage tiering, data transfer costs, not just multi-AZ costs, but also out of region expenses as well. And then pricing models like reserved instances and savings plans. So jumping all the way back down, we can see we're creeping outside of domain 2 and we go straight over to domain 3. But Greg, we have about 1 minute left. What's that one website that people should go to again?
AWSpowerhour.com is where you need to go to the landing page for the show.
And that'll take you straight here to our AWS Training Certification on Twitch page, where you can scroll down, click on AWS Power Hour Architecting Pro. And this is the first part of today. Stay tuned for more from AWS On Air, and we will come back for our second part where we cover domains 3 and 4. But go check out the entire series. And again, thank you for watching AWS On Air. We will see you next time.